Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 12th episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. While I've been generally making an effort so far to talk about albums I feel like aren't quite as talked about as others, and I'm still gonna do that for the most part, I decided to go with a slightly more recognizable name for my second choice in this group of 10 modern albums. While it goes without saying that Kendrick Lamar is pretty much as big of a star in hip hop as you get in the current culture, it's a little hard to tell where Section 80 sits with some of his younger fans. If you're around my age and you were in middle or high school when Kendrick was first starting to get big, you might have been introduced to him through songs like ADHD or Rigor Mortis off of this album, or maybe even songs like Ignorance is Bliss, P&P 1.5, or Michael Jordan off of his previous tape, Overly Dedicated. And if you're like 13 to 18 currently, I could see you being introduced to Kendrick through some of the big hits off of Good Kid Mad City, like Swimming Pools, Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe, Money Trees, or Poetic Justice. And honestly, there might even be a number of people who were introduced to Kendrick through Damn, which is personally my least favorite Kendrick album. So with that in mind, I thought it would make sense to share why I love this album so much, because I feel like Section 80 plays for me probably how a lot of the classic 90s albums play for people who were in high school at that time. The amount of nostalgia and memories that flood in every single time I put this album on, I kind of have to try and separate myself a little bit to look at the album objectively. While the story in Section 80 isn't as linear and direct as what takes place in Good Kid Mad City, and the concept isn't quite as poetic and metaphorical as To Pimp a Butterfly, but by still being really strong in all of these departments, but excelling in other ones, Section 80 is able to be its own experience completely separate from those albums. This album also creates some of the best atmosphere of any album in the 2010s, because while it still has plenty of jazz influence, it isn't wall to wall like with T-Pab. Section 80 is sort of its own experience. By being relatively fresher in the game and not finished fully developing as an artist yet, Kendrick was able to make a collection of songs from a wide-reaching list of influences that broadened the sound palette of the album while still hitting on the same motifs. As much as Drake likes to compare himself to the Beatles, I actually kind of liken Kendrick to the Beatles. They're both universally so admired by their contemporaries, their influences, and really the music community in general, but then there's always people who say they hate these artists just to be contrarians and go against the grain. Obviously, nobody is saying you have to like these artists, but if you actually ask any of these people to explain why Sgt. Pepper or To Pimp a Butterfly are bad albums, more often than not, they can't really explain why past you just like it because people say you should. In reality, me and my friends were blown away by songs like Rigor Mortis at the time, and I know that song is a bit controversial with Kendrick fans since it seems like a lot of people don't like the beat, but personally I do, and it wasn't ever something that came up amongst my friend group. Section 80 has a number of these fun, memorable moments that me and my friends would quote back in the day. Obviously, singles like ADHD and Hold Up were super catchy and memorable, but despite it not really seeming to be on streaming services anymore, the song The Spiteful Chant was sort of an early meme that we absolutely loved, and I don't really feel like it got its due credit as kind of a early meme comedy song. This album also featured a verse from fellow Black Hippie and TDE member Absol, who personally was always my favorite member of TDE, and I've always maintained that while Kendrick is the best artist of the crew, Solo is the best writer and lyricist. His 2012 classic Control System has been one of my top wanted vinyls forever, but to my knowledge it was never even pressed up since I've never seen one copy of it anywhere, even online. But it was Section 80 that first introduced me to Absol and really made me a fan, where he goes back and forth with Kendrick on the fittingly titled track Absol's Outro. Both have verses that I absolutely love, and knew like the back of my hand when they came out. Off the bat, Solo comes in with "What's your life about? Enlighten me. Are you gonna live on your knees or die on your feet? It's fire in the street, fire in my swisher, fire in between the two legs of your little sister. Just get a sip of this elixir before they crop us out the picture. I've never seen a crop circle, but I've seen cops circle the block. I puff squares, but I swear one day I'ma stop, my nerves itch." Another highlight that I referenced earlier is the standout rigor mortis, where again, if you aren't one of the people who finds the horns annoying, you'll probably be floored by Kendrick's absolutely inhuman breath control. I think with someone as massive as Kendrick Lamar, it's all too easy to overlook his alien skills and take them for granted, but I promise you, if you lined up every rapper out there and had them try to rap rigor mortis without running out of breath, only a select few could do it. A lot of pop rap fans will use the excuse, "Oh, well, it isn't better just because it's boom bap," which for one, it isn't boom bap. They seem to just label anything that isn't pop rap or drill as boom bap. But the thing is, if we did the opposite and gave Kendrick all these pop rapper songs to do, he would be able to do them easily because he's had more hits than most of them. It reminds me of how I saw this video a while back of Hit Boy and Alchemist making beats for each other to rap over, proving that they're both legends, and Hit Boy had a line about how Metro Boomin and these other pop rap producers never do boom bap records. I saw a lot of people saying that same thing I mentioned before, where they acted like Hit Boy's point was boom bap is better than pop rap, which was not his point. Alchemist and Hit Boy have produced countless huge hit songs. His point was producers like them can do both, and producers like Pierre Bourne or Metro Boomin can't. Or if they can, they haven't shown it, and any hip-hop head knows Hit Boy was giving them an opportunity to prove them wrong and do a boom bap beat or rap over something themselves. It's the same reason they excused Uzi not being able to rap over that DJ Premier beat back in the day. They still excuse that and defend it and say it wasn't his type of beat, and yeah, I get that, but don't complain when people don't take you seriously as a top rapper or lyricist of all time when you refuse to freestyle over the most basic boom bap beat when you were asked to. Nas is twice the age of a lot of these guys, and he's done drill songs in recent years. He's done all sorts of pop songs. His King's Disease series, which coincidentally enough was produced by Hit Boy, has plenty of trendy and contemporary moments, but as always, Nas puts his pen first, and it really pays off because these albums have been widely talked about and they've sold really well. Nas doesn't complain that it's not his style when someone throws him a drill beat or other contemporary beat to rap over, so I don't really feel like it's fair for a lot of these people half his age to not show the same courtesy to these old school beats and then be surprised when they don't get listed on the top rapper lists. Alchemist probably doesn't even really consider himself a rapper, definitely not primarily, yet projects like Step Brothers with fellow MC producer Evidence show that he's more than a capable lyricist, as well as the Gangrene albums with Oh No. However, I should mention that Al actually debuted way back in the early 90s as a kid, kind of preteen, along with actor Scott Caan in the duo The Hooligans, so he does technically have a bit of experience as a rapper. Anyway, back to Section 80, it actually has a good chunk of features besides Absol, including Colin Monroe, GLC, Astrobot, and BJ the Chicago Kid. There was also a talented group of producers that made this album happen, like Dave Free, Soundwave, Tay Beast, Terrace Martin, THC, Tommy Black, Willie B, Wildflyer, and of course J. Cole, who famously made the beat for High Power. I think my three favorite songs for this one would have to be ADHD, Tammy's Song or Her Evils, and Absol's Outro, but for some honorable mentions, I'd have to say Rigor Mortis, Keisha's Song, and probably High Power. Thank you for watching my 12th video. Next time I'm going to talk about an album from this same year that actually might slightly top this album in terms of my personal enjoyment. So be sure to tune in if you want to see what that is, and like, subscribe, let me know what your favorites off of this classic are, and don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you guys next time, okay? Alright.